These days, when in doubt, we seem to rely on maths. Numbers are neutral, right? Well, wrong. And yet politicians in every corner of the kingdom, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England seem to think that they were. Southborough High is a school which the algorithm quite literally could not compute. A school which has been on a journey of improvement, expecting its best year ever in 2020. Yet 60% of their students were downgraded. To see them, in the work of a moment, upgraded in turn was emotional for staff.
7 years. Worked with those students for 7 years. We know them. We know them better than an algorithm does. And we knew this was the right decision.
The students might be off to university, but the damage between teachers and politicians could be permanent.
Do you think most teachers have any confidence in Gavin Williamson?
After what's happened in the last 5 days, I would find it incredibly strange if they did. This is enormous on the personal level for the students. But the only reason that we fought so hard to ensure that we played our part in making the injustice known was for the students.
Williamson himself claimed today that he'd sought Ofqual assurances that there would be no severe inequality.
We had the constant reassurance that the system, the algorithm, was the right algorithm in order to be able to deliver a fair distribution of grades within schools right across England. When it became apparent that there were challenges with that, the right thing to do is to act.
Trust our teachers! You're having a laugh, Gav! You're having a laugh, Gav!
But that is perhaps just as damning. For if he and other politicians had actually understood the algorithm that was to cause such uproar, they would have known that those inequalities were intrinsic to its work and could not be avoided.
Trust our teachers!
For teachers, it revealed a lack of trust, and thoughts now turn to those who come next.
My view is that exams could have gone ahead this year. We had an empty school. We could have had socially distanced exams for Year 11 and Year 13. So the exams could have gone ahead, that's my view, and they must go ahead next year.
This is a moment of joy for teachers and for students. But make no mistake, this decision simply transfers the chaos, transfers it from Ofqual, who had to design a whole new appeals process for hundreds of thousands of cases, transfers it from schools, who had to navigate that Byzantine process, and transfers it from politicians who had to deal with the political fallout. And they've transferred it to universities and university admissions offices, which are in pandemonium. Elite universities now have more offers that they are legally obliged to accept than capacity, especially with social distancing requirements. Fears turn to a reduced intake next year, which could be just as damaging for social mobility. And newer universities worry that they could be left without the students they need to survive.
I think some universities who were financially challenged before this scenario came into being will find it particularly difficult if we do find a move away from those institutions during this new process, which is why we had the student number control in the first place. So yeah, I think it could for some be a real challenge, and they will need government support in those circumstances.
This isn't over. Clarification on BTECs are to come. But when the dust settles, perhaps the biggest remaining question will be this. How could so many politicians accept without much question that a set of algorithms could certainly determine how an individual might perform, and then not consider that even if they could, then they probably shouldn't?